Hello, hello, and welcome to another forecast. We are here for the Pisces New Moon forecast, which is the final new moon of a cycle because Pisces is the final sign of a cycle. So I'm going to share that chart. And I just want to point out that obviously I share the chart based on the time zone in which I live. So, oh, there, it is sharing now, is it? I think so. Okay. So the rising sign, for example, is based on where I'm based. So don't worry about the house system or these little pie wedges that you see here in the chart. Rather think about, do I have any points? I know I say this every time, but if you're finding me for the first time, or even if you're not, it's really important to remember that this is a weather forecast of this next new moon, which is on the 28th of February, 2025. And where I'm happening in the world, it'll be happening at 2:44 a.m. However, it's just a forecast of the overarching energy, which is interesting in and of itself. But if you want to make it a little bit more personalized, you need to go and see if it's triggering off any parts of your chart. So if you have strong Pisces energy, for example, then you very well may have a little bit of triggering going on, because as you can see from this chart, hold on. Ugh, my computer seems to have frozen. There we go. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things happening in Pisces here. So there's a pile up, a Pisces pile up, or a stellium, as we would say in astrology. And it's not just planets, it's also points, because we have the North Node there, which is a point, not a planet. And we're going to discuss all of those things through the course of this. But one of the signatures for me that is as important as all the Pisces stuff at the Pisces new moon is the dynamic between Mars and Venus at this lunation. And indeed, over the last part of last year to the beginning part of this year, there is, and maybe even the whole of this year, I might even say, there is a strong connection between these two planets. Venus, the she planet, the feminine; Mars, the he planet, the masculine. And this isn't really about gender, it's about those impacts within yourself. So you have Mars in your chart, and Mars in your chart is how you do the masculine or yang things, how you get things done, how you take action, how you are a warrior, a fighter, a go-getter, those more linear type of patterns, versus Venus, who is more feminine, more receptive, more about attracting to her rather than going out and getting what she wants. It's more of a sit back and wait for things to come to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean doing nothing. Venus is very clear on her values, and if she can maintain that vibration of being in her value system and knowing what she loves and how she wants to be love and give love and all of those things, then she will attract the right thing to her. But we need the go-get energy, and we need the sit and attract energy within each of us. And in this while, we have a very, very strong dynamic between the two. And again, taking that into your chart and seeing your own natal relationship dynamic between your Mars and your Venus could also be interesting, but that would depend on your level of understanding of this. So I don't want to go too far ahead for you. But what I want to say is at this lunation, Venus is 2 days away from stationing retrograde. She only retrogrades every 18 months. And she retrogrades at 10 degrees and 50 minutes, I think it is. And here she's 10 degrees and 45 arc minutes. So she's basically still already. She's stopped. And the degree that a planet stations retrograde or stations direct is its slowest point. So it's the place where it is the most intense, where it really digs in and wants you to learn some kind of a lesson. So in this case, Venus is at that degree at the Pisces new moon, and Mars is only a few days off. I think so Venus is 2 days from stationing retrograde. Mars is 4 days having already stationed direct. And he only retrogrades every 2 years, and he takes a little bit longer in it, but he has just stationed direct, and he is still at the same degree as well, at 17 degrees that he stationed at. So I'm just going to flip on the screen here in this Astro Seek app, which I use for these forecasts, which is so user-friendly. So I just want to give you a little showing here. If you come in This is the same, basically the same app that I'm showing you. You come to Astro Tools, you go to retrograde planets. When you get into the retrograde planets, that's where I am here, you can scroll down and you can see that Venus will station retrograde on the 2nd of March at 10 degrees and 50 minutes, and she will station direct at 24 degrees and 37 minutes of Pisces, just as you can look at Mars's stuff here. Okay, so this is where you can see the dates and the degree range to see if it impacts you. There's the Mercury retrogrades and all the retrogrades, okay? But just look here, 24 degrees of Pisces. I'm speaking very strongly this year about how much is happening in these late degrees of Pisces, early degrees of Aries. There's a phenomenal amount of activity there. So as much as I'm saying, if you're very Pisces, go and look in Pisces. If you're late Pisces, early Aries, this is ever more intense for you this year, even into next year. And intense might be good intense. It might feel less good intense, but usually when we get through it, we can see that even the challenging stuff was for our soul's development. So Pisces, being the final sign of the zodiac, is very much the wise sage, the mystic. It's that stage of life where certain things that seemed so important when you were younger just suddenly don't. You have a bigger perspective, you have a broader perspective, you have a deeper, hopefully, emotional intelligence, all of these things. You're more intuitive, naturally, more psychic, all those kinds of things. And then Aries is the baby, the first sign of the zodiac. So when we get to Pisces, it's like, especially the last degrees of Pisces, and you're going to hear me say this again and again, the last degrees are like being in the birth canal. You're in the amniotic waters. You are ready to leave behind a cycle because you have reached a level of mastery of that part of your life, that cycle in your life, right? Because Pisces is the end of a cycle. So now you're at the last degrees of Pisces and you're now in the birth canal, because in these types of metaphorical archetypal cycles, death is not death. I mean, sometimes death is death, but even then it's rebirth into a new thing. So we don't look at death as like that is the end. We look at death as the death of something and the rebirth of another. And that's very much what this Pisces Aries axis is talking to. So if the end degrees of Pisces, let's call it the last 5 degrees, is you in that squeezy part of the birth canal where you're crowning, because Aries is the head. So it comes out head first. It's literally like being born. And think about a 10 centimeter diameter space for a woman to press a baby through. And that crowning, there's this push and pull feeling at the moment where the baby will start to come and then it will recede, and then it will start to come and then it will recede. And that is going to be the whole of this year. The real push for birth is more next year. But there's many layers and themes that are going to be exceptionally pertinent because it's different planets and different points that are having this dance. We have already seen by this new moon that the North Node, which moves backwards, has moved from Aries into Pisces already. So he's gone from the beginning, he's coming back into the end of a cycle, and that's how the nodes move, and they indicate where we're going to be experiencing eclipses. So we have been having the eclipses in the Aries Libra axis, a bit smaller, in the Aries Libra axis, and we are now moving into the Pisces Virgo axis, but there's an overlap. So our next eclipse is going to be in Virgo, but then it's going to be in Aries. Okay, so it's not perfectly opposite, which is how eclipses usually work. Because we're in a transitional eclipse cycle, we're transitioning from Aries North Node to Pisces North Node. And although it's already shifted, the eclipses are still vacillating between one and the other. So that has already happened. Now, in this particular lunation, we can see that the North Node and Neptune are tightly conjunct by degree, not by minute, but by degree. So they're both at 28 degrees, right near the end of Pisces. And Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. And the North Node is about our soul's urge to develop. And they are screaming at us about make bigger dreams, break through boundaries, and change the way things are done. It's the wisdom of the old, Pisces, saying, I can see where humanity went wrong, or I can see the potential pitfalls for planet Earth. And the only way, nothing changes if nothing changes, basically. So the only way forward is to break out of the rigid structures and patterns and top-down power and the way the politics has been run and the way the banking systems have been run, all of these need to change, okay? And we've already spoken a lot about that over the last few years as we've had Pluto in Capricorn, top-down power, the old way of doing things, moving into Aquarius, the new way of doing things. So that's already been a big thing. And it's still something we're working with. Now, the theme is shifting slightly. Pluto's getting more confident about this is what I need to work on and transform in my 20-year journey through Aquarius. And while Pluto's getting more solid in that, we have both Neptune beginning his shift of sign, which is a slow process. He takes 150 years to get all the way around. So he doesn't change sign very often. And so he's also going to be undertaking this shift from Pisces to Aries, that strong one. And then we also are going to have Uranus this year shifting from Taurus into Gemini. So to have the three outer planets or the three modern planets all shifting within the space of a few years, simultaneously, and all into more masculine signs, from earth and water signs, which are more feminine, into air and fire signs, which are more masculine. This is just about unprecedented, okay? So there is so much speaking to change, to endings, to beginnings, to rebirths. And then, as I say, this year, and particularly at this new moon, we are really seeing a lot of this theme that's going to carry on. It's almost like pushing us to see it. The other thing I wanted to point out is, do you remember that I said that Venus is going to retrograde back to 24 degrees of Pisces? So although she hasn't even stationed retrograde at this lunation, she's a couple of days away from it, then she has to do her whole retrograde process to station again, the stationing degrees, just like at this lunation, she's on her stationing degree to go retrograde, and Mars is on his stationing degree to go direct. So there's an intensity with them. But Mercury, who is also going to move into Aries and go retrograde into Pisces, and I'll show you that on the chart now, but he is at the degree that Venus will move all the way back to before she stations direct. And so that in itself is also really layering the intensity of observation, okay? So if we come into these retrograde planets again, and we come up to look, you can see that March 15th at 9 degrees, which is basically the same degree. Venus starts her retrograde at close to 11 degrees, but let's call it 10 degrees, and Aries starts his at 9 degrees. Mercury starts his, both in Aries, and this one comes a little later, 26 degrees, all right? So in this new moon, Mercury is not quite in his shadow. When he gets to 26 degrees of Pisces, which is the position he will move back to in his retrograde, that's when he's in shadow. His pre-shadow begins in a day or so, depending when he gets to 26 degrees, and then moves all the way to 9 degrees of Aries. That's his pre-shadow. When he gets to 9 degrees, he's going to stop and he's going to head backwards. That's his retrograde. And then he's going to stop again at 26 degrees. And then when he comes forward back to 9 degrees, that's his post-shadow. So again, even though Mars, and I hope this is not confusing for you, but even though Mars is not yet, he's just at this point, he's just stationed direct, he actually still has to do his entire post-shadow. So he's still in his retrograde cycle. Just as Venus has already been in her pre-shadow before this. So even though none of them are retrograde here, and you can see the retrograde here, so the North Node, but that's always retrograde. But if you see an R, then you know that they're retrograde. So right now, at this point of this new moon, which is new beginnings, in the wise, sensitive, intuitive sign, ethereal, ephemeral kind of sign of Pisces, nothing is moving backwards. It's almost like we're poised. We're poised for some kind of seed planting, wish making, which is exactly what new moon is anyway. It's the start of eclipse season. It's not an eclipse, this new moon, but the next full moon in Virgo is going to be a total eclipse. So we're 2 weeks at this point. We're 2 weeks away from our first of 2 eclipses in this eclipse season. We're poised for some kind of change. Nothing is moving backwards. It's not about backwards reflecting in this moment, in this small window. It's not about that. It's about feeling how I need to labor through this birth canal and how do I need to dream forward? Pisces, Neptune North Node conjunct at 28 degrees. How do I need to dream my way forward? How do I need to Mercury change my mind to think around this new beginning? Saturn, how do I structure that? How do I actually make that a reality? And then, of course, Sun and Moon, the two lights in the sky. Moon is dark at this point. It's a new moon. They're together in the sky. They're in early Pisces, so they're both going to travel over those last degrees of Pisces, early Aries, the moon within a few days, because she moves pretty fast, and the sun within a few weeks. And they're going to reiterate. So this is such a powerful, please set your intentions. For those who live nearby, I'm doing a workshop with intention setting, journaling prompts, and yoga class in Grahamstown. But for those of you who don't, it's very important to find a red tent women's circle for those of you who have one of those, or any kind of gathering or any kind of solo work where you set your intentions, because this is a very powerful point of seeding for the future. Remember, we have that strong dynamic between Mars and Venus, which is how do I balance the sexes, or how do I balance the ability in me to be more receptive, Venus, if I'm too action oriented, Mars, or vice versa. Like, what is it in me? Tune into that. What do I need to do? What do I need to sit back and see? Where am I in a creative spiral? Where am I in an action spiral? Where do I need to dream, and where do I need to make that dream a reality? Because we've also got the Neptune Saturn, and these two will be moving across the threshold from Pisces to Aries together, and they're very different energies. I mean, the one is saying no boundaries, anything is possible, the depths of the ocean, and Saturn is like, put in effort, do the work over time to develop your mastery, make it real, bring it into the material world. So they have a very different vibe. But on the plus side of that is that we get to access both sides of those. We also get to access Mars and Venus side of ourselves. There's a lot of both and happening. They feel sometimes conflicting to one another, and that doesn't fit, because how am I supposed to be all boundaryless and boundless and also boundaried and structured? What the hell? And that's actually the key here. How can we hold all of these parts of ourselves? None of them are wrong. None of them are right. They may be completely different from each other, but they're all parts of who we are. And if you then bring this into your own chart and say to yourself, okay, well, is any of this conversation and this new moon hitting strongly in my own natal chart? Let's say that you are a Pisces and you have your sun at 24 degrees of Pisces. Then not only is Mercury on it in this new moon, but you know that Venus is coming back to station at 24 degrees. That's a strong spot for you this year. Saturn will come over it. The North Node will come over it. You see what I'm saying? Now you're going to say, well, if that's my sun sign, what does the sun mean? What is my greatest soul's expression? I, as a sun in Pisces at 24 degrees, what does that say about me? So when I then get triggered by the North Node of how can I step more deeply into my soul's purpose? How can I structure things differently? All the things of the different planets that are going to touch there. Then you're going to get a deeper understanding of what your personal themes around this are. And if that sounds crazy and overwhelming, remember that you can book a session with me or with another astrologer, and then that will be somebody that knows the language more fully, that can help to give you words and to discuss with you the themes that are coming up in your life and why that may be. Why have I been experiencing this lately? Well, it could be because this is hitting this, and therefore, even though it feels like crap, it's actually okay, because this is your point to shift out of a job that you really didn't like, or out of a toxic relationship dynamic, or whatever it is. So yes, everything is pushing you, and yes, it doesn't feel great, but actually, if we look at the chart, we can see that you are being pressured to change, to transform. that type of thing. So if you have an astrology consultation, those are the kinds of things that you can get more clarity on. If your astrology knowledge is such that you can take these forecasts into your own chart and work with it yourself, journal with it, meditate with it, whatever method you use. Remember, we're all different and we're also multifaceted and multivalent, which is why we have to hold the both this and that and this and that and this and that, because I am not one dimensional. You are not one dimensional. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to stop there. I feel like it's a lot in a short space of time, but this is such a powerful new moon for seeding. Every new moon is, but this one has a bit of extra oomph. And think bigger, dream bigger. Pisces is also the sign of dreams and the imaginal realm. So get outside of the box you always thought you had to be in. Look at where old ancestral patterns and things, because Pisces can also relate to that. Play into your belief systems and your value system, and ask yourself, I do understand why I've believed that all my years, but do I actually believe that? Because Aries is very much the sign of me. Pisces is us, the whole collective. All the ancestors have had this pattern. Aries comes in and goes, I get that, but actually I fundamentally disagree with that belief that my family's always believed in. And I didn't know how to say it because that's all I've ever known. And yet I feel it so strongly in my body that it's not for me. Those are the kind of themes that will come up this year, not just now, but they might very well be flagging now. If you have, they've been rumbling in the background and now they're getting louder and louder. And instead of in your peripheral vision, they're starting to come into your focus. And if that's the case, they're there for a reason. They're being pushed to the surface, pushed to your front vision for you to look at them, be honest about them, and make the changes that you need to make. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm sending you so much love out there. Please do email me and message me directly if you would like to get in touch for any of the things that I offer. And I hope that you plant the most beautiful seeds for your future, because your future is my future. We are all connected. That's also part of a Pisces archetype. Whatever choices you make, whatever thoughts you think, whatever actions you take, they are all impacting me and everyone else. So that's quite a big responsibility. So we do need to do our energetic hygiene, and you've got this. If you're watching this this video, then you're that person who wants to be the best version of you for the whole lot of us. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your likes, shares, comments, and subscribes, and I will see you again next time.